Welcome, everybody, to the show. This is Counterclipping Show number 238 for September 15th, 2025. I didn't put the date in my notes. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening. Our topic tonight is pre-orders from Compass Games, and we'll talk our way through all of the 30-some things that are available from Compass for pre-order already. We'll talk about that list in a little bit, but in the meantime, let me remind everybody to please do thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel if you are not already subscribed for some unhappy reason. And there are a whole bunch of ways to support the channel in the video description. I'll particularly point you to the Patreon, and the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair are the folks who help keep this channel going. So thank you, patrons, and thank you also to our good friends at Noble Knight Games, with whom we will be sharing some ad time later. And in the meantime, super chats and super stickers are on. That's another great way to support the show and to get thank you for whoever reported the bot. That is appreciated. I did go through the show when I set the show up this week. I made sure that there weren't any settings on my side that might have been serving people inappropriate ads during the live show. That is not okay. So this is a question for sales@compassgames.com. That's where to direct that inquiry. That goes right to Bill. I'm lower than the intro music. That's weird. But this computer is starting to friggin' die, so that might be part of the issue. Anyway, super chats. Hopefully, if I'm not hearable, please say something, and we'll try not to have any super loud anything else happening during the show. Okay. Anyway, super chats, super stickers are on. It's a great way to get your comment highlighted so that I don't miss it, which does tend to happen a lot because I get backed up on the comments. And it is a great way to support the channel, and it is much appreciated when it occurs. So, we are drinking this evening. We are once again drinking the Glendronach Original 12-year-old, bottled at 43%. It is a Highland Scotch. It is a Highland Scotch, right? Yeah, it is a Highland. Tastes like a Highland. I would hope that it is, but you know, those are not perfect categories with necessarily easily defined borders. So it could be me. I've been having Eric Schaefer. I've been having network problems for the last little while. I got to get the fiber set up. We got to get that done. I'm going to try and remember to make that call this week so we can have better service and better bandwidth and all of those things. So before we go any further, let's say hello to Six Actual, Board Gaming Geezer, Bob Meyer, Charles Latora, Christophe DeClerc, Daniel Silverthorne, Danny Seckery, Dave Poirier, David Zell, Doug Blayard is here, E.L. Egret, Eric Goebel, Eric Schaefer, HUN644 New, James Whitmer, Jeff Anderson, Jeff Beeler, Jeff T, Joe Hammond, Joe Okabayashi, John Haas, John Mogg, John, thank you for stopping by, and John MC, and Jonathan Dyer, Kyle Harris, Lee Grant, Mark McNair, Marty Sample is here, Meandering Mike is in the house, Michael Simon, Neil Badkey, Panzer Division Lair, Paul Dangle, Perigee, Rick Cox, Rob Johnson, Royce, Stacking Limit, of course, is here as our intrepid moderator, and let me remind everybody to please don't say anything stupid. Everybody be a grown-up here, and everything will be fine. Stephen Rochelle Stigler is in the house. Stuka Joe is in the house. Joe, thanks for stopping by. Todd Cox, Vicky, welcome back to the show. Vince Ree and William Bird. And John Weeble, I apologize for anybody else that I have missed. Oh my. So, Lee Grant, thanks so much for the support. It is much appreciated. I had wanted to play Federation Empire since the 80s, and I have owned it for something like 10 years, and I just got to play it like in the last year or so, and I liked. We didn't play very much of it because it is kind of a project game, but I did enjoy my experience with it, and I have a counter storage solution for that. There are 10 billion expansions for it. I would think carefully about what you want to incorporate personally. So thank you once again, Lee Grant, for the support. It is again much appreciated. So what do we got going on this evening? I don't really have any news. As has been mentioned in the chat already, GMT has charged for the latest batch of games. I think that was a little bit later than necessarily anticipated. But that's okay. I was personally not on the hook for any of these, so I got out unscathed. Battle of Hoth. I have already registered my opinion on this product, and I think the only Battle of Hoth game I would be willing to buy would be the one from West End Games from the 80s. And that is not probably what you are talking about, Ray Musselman. So, mm, delicious, delicious scotch, of which we might be partaking in a substantial amount this evening. Um, there are also a billion scenarios in Fed Empire, so if you don't need to play the general war is kind of this whole thing that like everybody's involved eventually anyway, and I would advise not starting with that unless everybody you're playing with is deeply familiar with Fed Empire already. John C. from the sunny Philippines. Welcome back, John. Great to see you here, and thank you for the support as well. And good job installing solar panels on your roof. We are having exceptionally great weather here in Ohio at the moment. It is cool at night and warm, but not boiling during the day. We'll see how long that holds up. So I am a fan of the Lyrans and the Khazinti and the Gorn, actually, in the Starfleet Battles universe. Anyway, did the ticker die? No, I just haven't put the ticker up yet. Also, don't have a link to the Ardwulf Discord community. Let me retrieve that real quick. There was a small technical hitch in the minutes before the show, so I did not get a chance to do that. I will put a link to the Ardwulf Discord community in the chat right now. It is a fabulous community, and we are having a great time over there. And you know what? Sooner or later, things are going to happen on those Discord servers. For example, on the RPG Digest Discord server, I'm not giving away that link publicly right now. If you would like it, please email me. My link is in the ticker. My email address is in the ticker, and I will consider sending you an invitation. But we've got a Braunstein, Boot Hill Braunstein coming up, and looks like it's gonna be amazing. So that is going to be played on the RPG Digest Discord server, and eventually we'll get some more game stuff going on the Ardwulf Discord community as well. So nice. Italia 1917 and 1918. I take it that is the one from Nuts Publishing. It looks really nice. And I also, let's talk about this. I have also received La Bataille de Calme, which came with more stuff than I expected. But I really didn't dig into the Kickstarter or anything when they crowdfunded it. I was just like, yeah, shut up. Here's $40 or whatever it cost at the time, and I didn't really pay that much attention to what I was getting. So I assume I didn't get anything that I didn't sign up for. But what I got is a fairly impressive looking package. And the component quality is exactly the same component quality you would expect to get out of Clash of Arms, kind of the main or most well-known publisher of La Bataille games at this point. So, and there's little difficulty, although I believe this one's going to use the Premier rules. I really haven't looked yet, just like La Bataille de Vauchamp did a few years ago. And I think that is actually the best La Bataille rule set to learn La Bataille on. But if you want to use a different rule set, you just do it. I mean, it's not really a big deal. So, all right. Very good. Southern Ontario is experiencing the same fine weather on this side of Lake Erie. In semi-personal news, no, this I might be interested in perusing. Then again, I'm also reading a Napoleon: A Life right now by Andrew Roberts in audiobook, so I'm not sure I need more Napoleon, and I'm sure that a film is not going to give me more than that book will. But it might give me a different perspective. I don't know. I'll read some other books on Napoleon when the time comes. So we are getting increasingly close to launching the RPG Digest YouTube channel. At that point, most to all of the RPG content will transition from Ardwulf's Lair over to RPG Digest. I don't have any actual plan to move old stuff, so whatever's there is there. But new stuff will end up on the RPG Digest channel. In this show, which we do weekly, I will mention, hey, here's 2 videos I did for RPG Digest or whatever. But otherwise, we will not have cross-pollination particularly. So, all right. So before, do I have anything else that I should have gotten to? not in my notes. So let's get started with our flip through of Compass Games pre-orders. And we're going to start with the extremely long-awaited Chopper Pilot Vietnam. This is a game by Ray Fiore. I know that Ray's been itching it at the neck to get this thing out for quite a long time, and it sounds like a pretty impressive package. It is going to contain a comic book and an emergency procedures manual, and I can't see a damn thing on this screen, so let's move it over here because the microphone was in the way. So let's do some screen rearranging. This is not normally how I run things. So Chopper Pilot Vietnam, which is, I will add, developed by our very own Vicky. And the game looks great. I like the cover. I like the way it looks. If we look at here's some counters. Here's sort of an operational level map. And it is a solitaire and co-op game, and I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. But I think that I don't think we, generally speaking, have enough Vietnam games anyway. So this is going to, I think, be a valuable entry into the roster of available Vietnam games that we have available to us. And this one is about something different than all the other ones, which I also appreciate, at least to my knowledge. So get in on this. Now, I'm going through this list. I have left off anything that is a straight reprint of something that Compass already published. So there's like a reprint of Steel Wolves on here. I'm not going to talk about that. If you want to talk about that, we'll talk about. I've talked about that probably before. So we're skipping all that, but there are some things that are new editions of older games that Compass is redoing. And at this point, when the stuff goes on pre-order, it has reached a certain critical mass over in the Compass think tank. And it is on track to get released. I also hope, Joe, that the Three Dog stuff is going well. So I'm very much looking forward to that as well. All right, let's see here. All right, excellent. So Chopper Pilot Vietnam, and it's got this cool Sergeant Rock looking comic in it too. I think that sounds awesome. This sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. So check this out if you are interested. There's a chopper display here too. If you are interested. So moving on from that, we have Jeff Phipps's game, Mons 1914, The Mad Minute. Now, we have talked to Jeff. I did an interview with Jeff a few years ago, mere days before GMT decided they were going to drop this game from P500. And I'm pleased to report that it got picked up by Compass within a matter of additional days. This is a sort of a grand tactical / operational type scale. It's essentially the same system as Gallipoli 1915 Churchill's Greatest Gamble from GMT, except that the system appears, from what I'm hearing, to be substantially reworked with ease of play in mind. So that's a good idea. The King Kong is actually a good idea. And of course, Ride of the Valkyries too. You got to have that. And The End by the Doors. Very good. Excellent. Excellent. There is a QR code with a music list to play while watching. Amazing. That's a great idea, actually. There's a lot of really memorable music that released in the Vietnam War era. So I think this is a good idea, and not enough people have taken advantage of it. But some other people have had the idea and gotten poo-pooed. So maybe that's why. Who knows? But anyway, Mons 1914. This is part of the Rifle and Spade series. I do not know. Just a Guard might, because I know he is a friend of Jeff's. I do not know what Jeff has in the pipeline for this series after Mons, the Mad Minute. World War I, of course, it's the Battle of Mons. It's kind of the initial blooding of the British, let me put it that way. And it is a pretty cool and interesting battle. It's a really interesting battle, and it's one of those World War I battles where I think you can get a really good game out of it, and I'm looking forward to seeing this. I'm gonna end up with this. Let's put it that way. All right, moving on. This is not a war game, but it is a historical game based on the 1862 Andrews raid. This is Engine Thieves by Wes Crawford. I don't know if we describe this as a Euro or not, but it is a board game. It's a Union raid on a Confederate rail line, and it sounds like a blast. So I am really looking forward to seeing this as well. Stay tuned on Seljuk. We're working an angle on that for over here. Brant, thanks for stopping by. McKenna wanted to tell McKenna I said hello. Wanted to make s'mores, so they're out in the driveway around a fire bowl, lighting marshmallows on fire. That's cool, and it's even more cool that you are listening to the show while the burning marshmallows are happening. Engine Thieves is another one. This is going to be a sort of game packaged and designed to board game standards rather than war game standards. And I would not expect wargaming mechanics in here. But besides that, it is an interesting historical topic, and I'm not positive there's ever been another game on it. And it looks like a lot of fun. So, by the way, I'm not sure that I have mentioned this. I am clipping Campaigns in Europe, the Italian campaign, and that is for an upcoming channel thing that I can't really do until the game's clipped. So hopefully that will get done before too much longer. I've got a couple issues of Paper Wars in here. This is the one that jumped out at me. This is Paper Wars number 111. I'm not sure when this is coming, but it's 30 Years War, which is cool. We have not really seen that many games on the 30 Years War as a whole thing. Is this the actual map? Because I'm going to tell you completely honestly, this looks extremely plain to me. Now, sometimes it's, maybe it's not the final map. Maybe it's just the concept art. That's cool. Nope, I'm taking a break from ASL for this, to be honest. This is completely... just make sure Kieran doesn't set his enormous beard on fire, and everyone will be fine. Really? Darren Leveloff, thanks for stopping by. I didn't think this was the case. I could, I guess, ask Wes this. But if not, then, hey, people slept on it, so check it out. Anyway, a game about the 30 Years War. Who is the designer of this? Presumably we will see that here. I can't read this at all. We've got two 30 Years War games on this list, however. Steve Newberg. This is a Steve Newberg design. I think Steve Newberg is an interesting designer that we should take a look at. Thanks, Danny Seckery, for reminding folks to hit the like button. Magazine game, I'm not going to write a letter to Congress about this map, but, it's not jumping out at me as an amazing map either. So the counters look perfectly good. But interesting topic. We don't have that many games on the 30 Years War. I'm not sure. I might have a battle game or two on 30 Years War battle. But there you go. Chris George, if Justigard is here, then he ordered Seljuk. If not, then he hasn't gotten to it yet. So, okay. So it is a reprint. So it's another one of these Compass things that kind of instantly vaporizes as soon as it hits production or availability, which is a great sign, actually. So this is a re-release. The Steve Newberg connection should give us the hint that this is in fact an older game from Simulations Canada, which I never saw, that is going to get re-released in Paper Wars, which is also cool that those are happening. Oh, very good. This makes total sense. All right. Falling Crescent. This is a game by another veteran game designer that we haven't heard a ton from in recent years, Roger Nord. This is an operational game of the British offensive of September to October 1918 against the Turks in Palestine. So that's actually interesting. I guess this is coming up. Thanks for stopping by, KY Sharp. That is going to be, if it is scheduled as usual, and I'm not going, the Memorial Day? Yeah, Memorial Day weekend in November. Veterans Day weekend. Sorry, got those mixed up. And you're not supposed to do that. Darren mentions that this is an excellent, actually. So I actually saw Roger doing playtests of this at Compass Expo. Last time I was at Compass Expo, which may have been last fall, but might have been the fall before. I'm not 100% sure. So, but it's not called the same thing, and it probably shouldn't be, to be fair. So if we look at the map, looks decent. I don't hate this map. We're really zooming in here. Counters also can't really zoom in on. Oh, there we go. Counters look fine too. Actually, they got a kind of a nice look, a nice icon look to them, I think. So this is another one that's I think looks fairly interesting. All right. Now I always like Shattered Swords. To me, Shattered, maybe because I got Blind Swords in my head. But it was absolutely colorful, Stigler, and the color was red. The title here is not a title that jumps out to me to say Carrier Battles in 1942. It says it's a unique game covering the naval battles between Japan and the U.S. in 1942, using cards to represent the combatants. Scenarios cover Coral Sea, Midway, Eastern Solomon, Santa Cruz, and there's a full campaign. Now, this is an Adam Starkweather design, if I am not mistaken, and I am not. Graphics by Greg Warren, and this kind of looks like an augmented card game to me, where you're there. It's pretty much a card game, but you got displays to move stuff around on, and that's actually interesting. And here we got some classic World War II Fightercraft 2 SW. Steve, thanks for stopping by. Great to see you here live. I know it doesn't happen very often. So, Shattered Swords is, as Vince Ree points out, I have heard of the book. It's just that my mind does not immediately click to that. It clicks to Civil War when I hear Shattered Swords. I may sneeze any second here, so. And I have not read the book. So game looks intriguing. I would be curious to see what it looks like upon release. Now here's a classic that I think came out from 3W back in the day, as I recall. It's another Roger Nord design. This is Grand Army of the Republic, and this is a strategic level Civil War game. I had never played the original. At least this version has an area map. Which for what it's doing, I think is completely fine, to be honest. All right, Stigler doesn't hate the book, so it obviously is absolutely spectacular. So you should definitely check that out if you're interested in that topic. That sounds like a reasonable comparison to me. Wow, we're getting this nice little strobe effect on however this is working. All right, so we're gonna stop leafing through stuff here. Cards look nice. Yeah, cards look real nice. This is another one that I'm curious about more than anything else. I have kind of a lot of strategic Civil War games, including both versions of War Between the States. I've also got, it's not this one, it's the one that Rob Bama did. I think. Original was Task Force games. Okay, that explains why I didn't catch that, because I don't associate Task Force games with historical games. I know they did a couple, but they're never the first person that I think of. War for the Union is, in fact, the game I'm thinking of. John C., thank you very much. And that's got some interesting things going on in it. That's why I picked it up. I don't feel like it's going to unseat one of the other 3 or 4 strategic level Civil War games that I have played and I like better. So, but I don't like the way the map draws mountains, but that's a personal thing. Maybe I'm nuts. But in any case, this looks like it might be worth a look if you're looking for possibly something that's maybe a little bit lighter than, say, the Victory Game Civil War. Well, they have not been around for that long. I will point. I'll get to that in a second. Task Force hasn't been around for a long time. I mean, Starfleet Battles is still alive, but Task Force games went away ages ago. So Jeff Beeler would like Bill to reprint the Traveler War games, but he is wary of Mongoose. So this landscape has changed a bit in the last year or so. So let's talk about that very briefly. Now, Compass is lined up to do a reprint of Belter, which is technically not one of the Traveler War games. It is technically just a science fiction board game that happens to be adjacent to and basically can be integrated seamlessly with Traveler. So I don't know what the change in ownership of the Traveler IP situation has done to screw Compass up. What I will point out is that if you go to Mark Miller's website at farfuture.net, and I know that because I just ordered another set of these fabulous Traveler dice from Mark. And if you have not ordered from him, or from Far Future Enterprises, you probably should, because you always get a ton of extra stuff in the box, or mailer, and the mailers are fabulous. I will one day I have a mailer. I will do a video on it, and we'll talk about that. So I don't know that Mongoose is very likely to reprint any of the board games, but Far Future does say on the website our partners are Free League for Twilight 2000, because Twilight 2000 was kind of collected by Mark. Compass Games and Mongoose Publishing. So, and I think that post dates the transition of ownership, but I might be mistaken about that. It does have nothing to do with The Expanse. However, that said, if for people who like The Expanse, I do think that Belter might. It's a pretty cool game. I've always liked Belter. It is, however, kind of a bookkeeping game, and a lot of people don't like that. So take that with a grain of salt. Anyway, back to Brad saw a copy of McPherson's Ridge from Task Force at a book game store in Mabane, wherever that is. So anyway, Aaron Armour 5th Corps. This is the second volume in the revived Aaron Armour series from Bruce Maxwell. I can tell you that now I don't have Würzburg, which was the first one. I can tell you that when Bruce and Compass redid NATO as NATO: The Cold War goes hot a few years ago, it was I mean, we played it. It is very good. It was very warmly received. And while there was a lot of excited talk about Aaron Armour leading up to its release, I don't feel like it has gotten that much attention since then, and I'm not sure why. Folks have said that the rulebook is difficult, but I'm not sure off the top of my head whether that's because the rulebook is really difficult or whether it's because the rulebook is merely large, which Bruce has a tendency to do. But I can vouch for the large rulebook in NATO: The Cold War Goes Hot, which is a thick rulebook, but it's got a lot of repetition, a lot of cross-referencing in it. It is clear. It is a very well put together rulebook. So, and I don't know if that is also true of Aaron Armour or not. So, in any case, I think this system has a great deal of potential for those interested in this topic. Mabun? Okay, anyway, I don't care where Mabun, North Carolina is. So, thank you, Brent, for that tidbit. But if you got Würzburg and you enjoyed it, this is probably something that you want to take a look at. Yeah, but like I said, the NATO rulebook is like 80 some pages. And despite that, it's not that complicated of a game, and it profusely illustrated, and the rules are well written. And whenever we had to look something up, while we were playing it, and I had never played that before, we found it pretty quickly, and the explanation of it was clear. And if the cost of that is an extra 30 pages of rulebook, well, I'm pretty okay with that. So, yes, Meandering Mike points out, Amarillo Design Bureau is the holder of Starfleet Battles, but that was true even back when it was being published by Task Force Games. It was under license from Amarillo Design Bureau, which in turn held their license from Franz Joseph Designs, which in turn held their license from Paramount or Desilu or whoever it was. So, all right. So Rick Cox says that he read the Aaron Armour rulebook and it was rough, and then he viewed the clips that Bruce and Mo did. That's a good point. If you want to learn how to play this, Mo has an extensive tutorial series with Bruce on Aaron Armour, so check that out. Well, they have the Molotov Cockatiel, Bill. They have this. It's called an index. And in game publishing, the state of indices are dire. War games, there are exceptions, of course, with rules with games with good indexes, but mostly the indexes suck. to be honest. They're just like, okay, I wrote this manuscript in Microsoft Word with a computer index for it, and that's it. And it's not at all useful. So, and yes, that is I do include Mongoose in that. Their indexes and their tables of contents are not very good. Not sure if anybody else mentioned this, but I just did some slight rearranging because more Traveler stuff came in. So Mothership is back here behind me now. It's pretty cool. It is more of an Aliens vibe than Star Wars. But that said, another thing that I actually meant to mention, this is an RPG thing, but put up with it, is this thing. Hostile. This is a Cepheus engine driven game. It comes in 2 books. The rules are in 1 book, and the setting is in another book, and there is an entire solitaire manual. And these just arrived directly from Lulu. These are print-on-demand volumes today. Except for the one that I had from Noble Knight for a couple of months. And it's really pretty cool. And it's definitely designed to kind of fit the vibe of Alien and Outland and movies like that. So I think Mothership is a little harder to do as a not horror game without playing up the horror elements. But that says the adventures are really cool, and they're not all like sci-fi horror adventures. Anyway. All right, so Perfidious Albion says he thinks he found a trimmer version of Aaron Armor rule set somewhere. Might have been on BGG, so that'd be worth a look. Austin Reitiger, thanks for stopping by. If you are looking for a simple strategic Civil War game from Compass, Price of Freedom is fun. It's about Washington's war level of complexity. So that's cool. That's cool. All right, let's try to get can ChatGPT. I don't know, man. I don't know. My initial impression. I'm actually taking this question seriously. There is another LLM available out there called Notebook LM, I think, that is kind of designed that you are going to upload a document to it, and then it's going to provide you with feedback and information and analysis on the contents of whatever you uploaded. It feels, without doing any experimentation, it feels like that would probably be a better tool for indexing than ChatGPT, which is kind of like a catch-all. Brant says that Bruce will be at the Fall Assembly in Cary, North Carolina, for anybody who wants to learn Iron Armor directly from the designer. Yes, so I will 100% say, as I mentioned, there are exceptions. And a buddy of mine did the OCS, and the gamers were always very good with this. Buddy of mine did the index for the OCS rules whenever that happened. Meandering Mike, I'm sort of kind of tempted to watch Alien Earth, but at the same time, I haven't liked any of the recent things. I don't really have any notion that will be something I would like. And I think this might be still live as of right now. On Bundle of Holding, you can get Hostile as like a pair of digital bundles. One contains the core stuff, and the other one contains like a bunch of adventures and source books and stuff. Call of Cthulhu's Index is pretty good too. That is true. Well, the Star Wars role-playing game was originally published in the 1980s by West End Games. The Fantasy Flight thing, which I've heard good things about, is a Johnny-come-lately deal. Go to armchairdragoons.com, Rick Cox, to find out about that. COC is Call of Cthulhu. There are 2 games called The Price of Freedom, or The Price of Freedom. One is the thing from Compass that Austin mentioned up thread, and the other is an old RPG might have been from West End Games by Greg Kostikian, as I recall, which is basically Red Dawn the RPG, as far as I can tell. Anyway, let's move on from that. Joseph Caparula says that Notebook LM works great for rules, questions, and referencing. If I was going to use that kind of tool for that kind of task, that is the tool I would be looking at. That said, I am not doing that, so we're good. I'm doing other stuff, and I actually used ChatGPT today to generate a couple of pictures, but MMP's Lincoln's War. Yeah, so there's 2 games that are very similar. One is by John Paniski and one is by Martin Wallace. I think the Martin Wallace one is just called Lincoln, and I got issues with that. But I've heard good things about the Paniski game. The other issue with that is, well, apparently, yes. Well, hold on. This is Solo Second Edition from Zoser Games. You can get this on DriveThruRPG or order it through their website, which basically means it comes from Lulu. This is the second edition. It's kind of tuned for Mongoose Traveler, so yeah, you can do that. And stay tuned because there's a thing that's happening. So I will provide a demonstration in the fullness of time. All right. All right, we are caught up. So let's move on from Air and Armor 5th Corps. And we'll go to Greg Smith's Rebel Tide. So this is based on the Pacific Tide system. And it, however, unlike a lot of Greg's games, it is a two-player game. And it is extremely lean. Point-to-point map. Sorry about those zoom in here, folks. A point-to-point map. I expect this to be playable in just a few hours, and it's probably going to be fun. I think Greg has great instincts as a game designer. That's actually what I meant to say, and I got distracted by the people talking about penises in the chat. So John Madison started. Andor finally was thinking how cool it would be to roleplay a Star Wars campaign like that with that feel. You will probably end up, hopefully, if I can communicate this, the Traveler thing I'm working on is actually also inspired, among other things, not exclusively Andor, but I really liked the feel of the show in addition to its other many virtues. So, and Perigee, yeah, that's World in Flames with the extremely phallic cover, and it really is hard to unsee. All right. So Rebel Tide, it's also pretty inexpensive, and even MSRP here is $69, which is really pretty good nowadays. So, and like I said, Greg's always solid. Don't worry, there will be several other Greg Smith games in this list. All right. Next up, this is a reprint 2, as I recall. Spanish-American War, 1898 by Vance von Voorhees. Do we have any details in here? Not really. All right, I don't know much about this, but I can see that it's got like multiple maps and counters that kind of remind. Who did the counters here? Game art by Bruce Urian. These counters have a GCACW vibe to me. We'll talk. Steve Barker, I may talk about this. I watched the show and I liked the show and I read the books, all three of them, and they got increasingly shittier as the books went on. So, and the third book is outright bad. So, and I thought the first one was decent. Yes. Absolutely. Anyway, I don't want to derail the wargaming stuff with talking about Andor. Maybe we'll talk about Andor toward the end of the show. So anyway, Spanish-American War by Vance von Voorhees, 1898. This looks intriguing. I have a game on the Spanish-American War, Remember the Maine, which was an S&T game. That is weird if it doesn't, isn't it, John? How about that? All right, I'm saving up, Winterson. I'm saving up the not. You don't have to be sorry, Danny. It's okay. I'm yelling at myself. Okay. Oh, it is. Well, then I don't need a new one, do I? I have Remember the Maine. It's unpunched too. Maybe I should do something with it. All right. So moving on from that, though, we got this irritating anti-crawler thing from Compass's website that I keep getting caught up on when I'm trying to visit the website for legitimate purposes. All right, this is Desert Generals by Ernie Copley. Now, I actually talked to Ernie about this, not on video, as like a follow-up. This is his follow-up from the War Europe and the War Pacific, which are both kind of big strategic level World War II games that like had a lot of moving parts and were very difficult to design. And Ernie's like, yeah, I don't want to do another one of those. So let's do this one instead. Desert Generals, 1940 to late 1940 to November 1942, with an emphasis on leadership and command. We see, I believe this is pretty far along too. Sometimes the zoom in seems to work, and sometimes it seems to totally flake out. Well, the the game Remember the Main, like I said, I do have this, is on the Spanish-American War. And it looked intriguing. And you know what? I think I got it out of the clearance room at Noble Knight like several years, not last year's trip, but several years ago when Fucko and I were up there. Speaking of which, where's Fucko at? Anyway, Desert Generals looks intriguing. I feel like I've got enough games on North Africa as a topic. I've got like 5, 6, 8 games on North Africa, and it's not like a primary topic of interest to me, even inside World War II. So I'm probably covered. After all, I have the greatest North Africa game ever published, Desert Fox Deluxe, already. So why do I need anything else? But that said, there are people who are super into Desert. Now, if this was a Market Garden game, I'd be drooling over it, right? So for those people who are like North Africa the way I like Market Garden, then you should check this out. Also very reasonably priced. Yeah, the bundles of holding are a really good deal. The physical books are nice. That you don't get the. I'm trying to hold off. The physical books are nice too. Let's put it that way. All right, Warriors of America. This is an Adam Starkweather game on the American Revolution. So, and it is inspired by Warriors of God, which I think was from MMP, I think. And we could see that this is kind of a area movement type of thing. I don't really have anything to say about this because I don't know anything about it. I will say that the cover is a little weird. Because it's got kind of that cutout title, which I don't hate, but then it's also got the image seems like really washed out, and I'm not sure that I like that effect. That is true, and I always miss these things. I forget my wife's fucking birthday not this year, thank God. Birthday all the time anyway. So yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I've got DAC, I've got DAC 2, I've got War in the Desert, I've got Desert Fox Deluxe. I've got I've got Brazen Chariots for Crusader and Battle Axe and whatever else, Brevity, I think it covers as well. So, I mean, I've really got a lot of North Africa games, and I'm not that into the North Africa games. That said, I had a great time playing Brazen Chariots. So I don't know a whole lot about Warriors of America here. Let's take a look at the pieces. These look large, which, given the way the map looks, probably makes complete sense. And pretty attractive, actually. Pretty nice job on these pieces, I'd say. The map, it's really hard for me to get extremely enthusiastic about a map done in this style, because it's just like we take a period map and we throw a bunch of boxes on it. And that isn't necessarily my favorite North Africa game. Is probably Brazen Chariots, to be honest. That's not an incredibly strong position, but I'd say Brazen Chariots. You really need to play BCS, by the way. Perigi says New England Simulations Hell's Highway reprint looks incredible. Indeed it does. That is a redo of Hell's Highway back in the day from Victory Games and John Butterfield, and it's a somewhat redesigned from what I understand. Frank says that Compass deserves an award for inventory control. He admires a company that can publish this many games and has not gone broke. I have said that too, actually, and I agree. And, I think Bill's just good at this. I think he knows how to massage the numbers, hopefully in an entirely legal way, that results in him being able to maintain more inventory. But don't forget, Bill sells out a lot too. So it's not like we can't necessarily assume that he's like sitting on, hundreds of thousands of copies of anything in particular. All right. Yeah, this is I was looking for War in the Pacific at one time, and well, and that's true. I have Campaign for North Africa. Why do I need another North Africa game when I have Campaign for North Africa already? Yes, this is correct. John Butterfield is redesigning it. He had a playtest of it going on at WBC last year. I don't know if anything happened this year. So, all right. So moving on from Warriors of America. Now we go to Dave Lelacheur. I think I'm saying that not terribly wrong. Lightning Strikes, the World Wars of the 20th Century. So this game is the game that was originally announced as Blitz 2. You may recall World in Flames Blitz is like a higher level, more abstract, but basically World in Flames, given those caveats, right? This is basically a similar thing, except that it will be covering Okay, this map is weird. It will be covering like most of the 20th century, so it's going to like do World War One, the interwar period, World War Two, and the Cold War. How that's going to happen, I don't know, but I am super interested in seeing what the designer has intended here. And I think you can definitely see a whiffish art style here. There's also, wow, a lot of really bad map distortion, especially around Africa. Um, but that is a thing that maybe you just have to deal with. I'm not sure it's a big deal. You know, if Bill know if Bill knows if Bill knows how to I believe the map here I believe the map artist here was Stevie Wonder, as far as I know. But yeah, it's yeah, but there's gonna be that's coming back too. So I have no question that that's not gonna stay out of print. And in Bill's defense, he's done multiple printings of that too. So CN Steel recently released Columbus Discovery and Conquest game shows Puerto Rico, which consists of 2 spaces. Interesting. I have not heard of that. I'd have to look at Conquistador to see how many hexes, and Conquistador is a hex map because that's how they rolled back at the time. So anyway, yeah, the map's a little, and I think we'll also see here when we look at counters. We'll also see that these have a sort of World in Flames-esque look to them as well, but they're also bigger, which is kind of nice. So I'm regardless of what the map looks like, I think this is a very ambitious idea, and I am very curious to see how this turns out. And I have, had my ears open on this for a while since I talked to the designer at Compass Games like 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm pretty sure the answer to this is no. But I'm not positive I can confirm that or tell you anything else. All right. Yes, and of course this is accurate. But we also have, kind of an idea in our heads about what the map of the world looks like, and when something like you see something like that, it just kind of wrenches you away from that, and you're like, wow, that looks weird. I mean, we saw people do that over Unconditional Surrender, which isn't that weirdly distorted, and is actually the correct map projection to use given what was on the map. I think this is true too. Brand says he thinks he's going to mean Dana Lombardi here. I think this is true, but don't take my word for it, and certainly don't try to republish Streets of Stalingrad without finding out. So, and there's people have tried, so I would advise against it. Yes, this is great. Yeah, and exactly. I think this is a super ambitious looking game. $150, but $160, but it's also going to have kind of a lot of stuff in it. 2 mounted maps, 1 other mounted map, 18 counter sheets, 52 political cards, and a crap ton of displays. So you're going to be getting a lot of stuff. One assumes this comes on a lorry of some kind. I think this is true from my recollection of playing Conquistador back in the day. This is true too, but I also have looked at a lot of equal area projections for reasons. So I can get behind a lot of different kinds of map projections. So hell, I did a fantasy map one time where I did the map projection myself with the math and everything. It wasn't something I feel like I need to do again. But it's the kind of fussy work that I kind of like doing. So there you go. Thus the 10 million things of Traveler that I've been working on. Anyway, no piece for 30 years. So this is the no piece for that Spain system. The design here is by Chris Van Burden. This is going to be, as I think, the 5th game in this series. And the series is well regarded. This is a pretty lean, point-to-point, card-driven thing. I am interested in the 30 Years' War. The fact is there's not that many games on the 30 Years' War that cover like the whole conflict. There are a few. There's 30 Years' War that Mark McLaughlin perhaps did. I know that One Small Step did a 30 Years' War game at several years ago, and I was like burning to get it, and then it became unavailable, and I wasn't sufficiently motivated to run a copy down, and now I don't feel like I need to. Because we've got this coming, and I'll buy this. We've got Cuius Regio coming from GMT. That looks fantastic. But this is what's the MSRP on this? $56. Again, I think I'm totally gonna buy this. I think this series has tons of potential. I know they're working on a 7 Years War game as well. We've also got one of the cool things about this series is War of the Spanish Succession, War of the Austrian Succession, War of the League of Augsburg. We don't have very many games on those. Yes, this is part of the no peace thing. So it should be a very similar system to the other games in that series. And you've got Louis XIV, No Peace Without Honor, which is the Wars of Louis XIV. So yes, this is the game I was thinking of. And it was a very impressive presentation, and somebody had it at Origins. A dealer had it at Origins. It might even have been Cubicle too, years ago. And I was like, oh, it's really nice. And I didn't have the cash for it at the time, so I walked out of there without it. There was a very old SPI 30 Years War game. That is true. And again, there are battle games, but like a game that covers the whole conflict is kind of something I'm interested in. I have heard this too. The 30 Years War game that GMT published, David Imperato says it's by David Fox and Mike Welker. I have heard pretty good things about that too, but it's not that easy to get now, and I'm content. I am almost never in a hurry, okay? Because the fact is I got more games than I can deal with already. So I don't really feel like I need to spend a lot of time or brain cells or money or effort to run down older games if there's a new thing on the horizon that I think is going to satisfy my interest in that topic. For me, this and Cuius Regio will more than satisfy the 30 Years War itch that I've got. So it shouldn't be. Six Actual Ray, thanks for stopping by. One of these days I got to wear the t-shirt on the show. The problem is it's white. And white, I don't have the right lighting to do white. I tried to wear white on the show one of these days, and it looks crazy. It does not work at all. Anyway, moving on from No Peace for 30 Years, we have, I have to say this correctly, Galaxy Force. It has to be said that way because it does not carry the proper impact. Now, I originally, when they announced this on pre-order, I'm like, well, this looks cheesy. And actually looking at it, it actually looks pretty cool. You've got the whole galaxy on here. The map has hexagons on it and everything, and I love hexagons. This is a game by Stefan Beck. And it looks like it's got quite a bit of potential. I am really quite interested in seeing this. Despite the name, Galaxy Force. Just what a name, man. Battles of the Fallen Stars. It is just fantastic. No relation to Galaxy Quest or Spaceballs, as far as I know. They are making a Spaceballs too. Not that enthused. Nice cover art too, actually. I like that. Don't be shocked, folks, if, as happened back in the 70s and 80s, our historical wargame companies occasionally dabble into the realms of science fiction and fantasy because those kind of games tend to be popular. And like I said, I think this actually looks pretty cool. It's solitaire. That's nice. I'm not interested in a solitaire game, and I do have Struggle for the Galactic Empire, which I really like actually, and which is also a solitaire game with a map of the entire galaxy. So, no peace without peace. This is a joke that has been floated since the release of No Peace Without Spain back in the day. All right, another one. Feels like it's been forever waiting for this too. We better actually find the space cruiser Yamato in there. Sensuikan, Japanese Fleet Submarines in World War II by Greg Smith and Brett Grimmond. I don't know what the holdup on this thing has been. This seems like a surefire win to me. This is the sort of Japanese counterpoint to Silent Victory. So you could kind of play this versus Silent Victory, I think, which sounds kind of cool. I'm looking forward to seeing Away Team 2. Perigee got Struggle for the Galactic Empire. Joe Miranda design, and very Asimovian in how it approaches things. So Stigler has so very many disqualifying boxes. But yeah, this is probably going to be a winner, and it's probably going to be fun. Solitaire tactical games places you command of a Japanese submarine from Pearl Harbor until the end of the war, or until the submarine sinks a week after Pearl Harbor, is more likely. And that's true. I don't know if this is necessarily the final cover. Don't assume that, but it might be. Who knows? Besides, maybe you can use the midget submarines in the game. That would be like Greg to include a million different submarines. So, all right. This is another one that seems like it's been cooking for a long time. The Troubles, Shadow War in Northern Ireland. Now, this is... What information do we have about this? I forget who the designer is on this. Somebody will say in the chat, I'm sure. Sensuikan, now with Godzilla. Why not? Why not? So Shadow War in Northern Ireland. This is what it sounds like, folks. This is the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and I think this is a really interesting topic. Now this started life, I think, and the map looks nice too. This started life as a coin game, and then my understanding is that it evolved away from that to some extent. Mo from Mo's Game Table is here, but it's still probably strongly coin inspired. It's just not going to be like a coin game. Very interested in seeing this, actually. As somebody that has recently learned that he is 4% Irish, this will cover my 4%, I believe. And all the scotch I'm drinking has covered my Scottish. So, yeah, I'm real interested in this. And it's, this is another one of these, this is still kind of a hot subject, man. People are still get upset about this. Nevertheless, I don't see any particular reason why you can't do a game about it, as long as the game is responsible and reflects the actual history, and is respectful to the parties involved. And I don't think that's a particularly difficult thing to do. So I have no issue with it from first principles. That's not necessarily to say that it's great. I don't know, but I'm very interested in seeing it. Interesting choice of sample counter sheets they gave us here, which is just a lot of markers. But then again, this one's got maybe it's all markers. Who knows? There could be blocks for all I know in this. What do we get in this thing? Wow, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of detail here. All right, mounted map. There's a secondary map for Belfast. 5 counter sheets of markers. A deck of 260 cards. That's a lot of cards, folks. There's a bunch of cubes, some octagons, cylinders. So it's a wooden blocks and stuff pieces thing. So there's going to be a lot of stuff here. $85 does not seem particularly unreasonable to me. Definitely interested in this. I like Irish whiskey too. I need to get myself a bottle of Jameson, actually. So maybe I'll. So in my case, we didn't know there are some Scottish surnames back in the early 1800s and earlier. So I knew that there would be Scottish, but I didn't know Irish. It seemed likely, but I didn't know. And now, I took the DNA test, so now I know. So anyway, yep, as meandering go horse slips, meandering Mike says. And Stack Limit says, hit the thumbs up. I am delighted to find out that everybody is being cool here tonight. So, Storm Over Dublin, Area Impulse game by Philip Jelly, who's got some stuff that I'm super into, that I would like to play. Let me put it that way. Pre-print and play game on BGG about the 1916 Easter Rising in Dublin. That sounds intriguing. I'm not print and playing anything. I got to tell you, I'm just not. Manasses Designer Signature Edition. This is a, god damn it, I forget who this originally came out with. Richard Britton. This was originally released, I want to say, by Iron Crown Enterprises, and Stuart has featured the original on his show. And I think there was something about the original map. This doesn't really look like the original map to me, but it looks like it may be inspired by the original map. There's like a Jameson Special Reserve too that really knocked my socks off. It was really, really good. So if this is the game I think it is, then yeah, no kidding. If this is the game I think it is from Iron Crown back in the day, this game is supposed to be excellent. So I've got a strong interest in this, despite having at least 2 games on Manasses already. And this is first Manasses, as I recall. Yeah, it is just first Manasses. And I think the designer passed away too. I might be wrong about that. All right, East Front Operational Battles Quad by John Tyson. So John Tyson has done a bunch of very interesting looking things, particularly from Hollandspiel. I've got Hood's Last, I think it's called Hood's Last Gamble, which is one of his Civil War operational games. And, you know, I'm a GCACW guy, but these games look pretty interesting. And I'm very curious to see what Mr. Tyson comes up with here as well. Let's see what we can find on the maps. I mean, it's Russia, so we don't necessarily expect a lot of terrain on here. There's Kharkov on this map. This is the Orel salient. Again, there's not a lot of terrain here. This is a part of Russia that there's not really that much that isn't rivers. A little bit more here. This is Operation Rumiantsev. And this is Operation Frederikus. And I see... I can't see shit. Anyway, counters look solid. Not sure who did the counter art. See if we can find out right here. Game artist is once again Bruce Urian, who appears to be able to work in a lot of different styles, to be honest. This does look pretty interesting. Very interesting to see what John Tyson can do with East Front World War II. After having seen him do some pretty nice work in the American Civil War, and operational American Civil War is pretty lean pickings. So I'm happy to have the occasional thing that isn't GCACW too. So nice looking game, very intriguing. All right, it is 9:02. So here's what we're gonna do, folks. I'm actually caught up on the chat, believe it or not. And as Christoph de Klerk has mentioned, it is time to hear from our good friends at Noble Knight Games. So take it away, Noble Knight. We'll be right back.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more. Going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at. Complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world, just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
All right, big thanks to our good friends at Noble Knight Games, and don't forget the affiliate link is in the video description. So if you're going to buy stuff from Noble Knight anyway, if you click through to their site using my affiliate link, then I get a little kickback in the form of store credit, and we will eventually save up that store credit and buy something nice, like Case Blue, for example, that we gave away not that long ago. I'm reasonably certain that sometime in the next 3 months, we will be doing another Noble Knight giveaway. I'm not sure it's going to be something quite as dramatic as Case Blue, but we will be doing another giveaway using Noble Knight store credit. So go ahead and use that affiliate link, folks. It really does help support the channel. It keeps stuff coming in that I can look at and do videos on when otherwise things are really, really very tight. I like quads, okay? It's really attractive to get 4 games in one package. And if they all use the same system, that's cool, but not all the quads do. Sometimes they're different. I don't know about these. The Brief Border Wars, I think, actually had 4 different systems in it, but they all used the same deck. So, oh, Vince Ree, you have failed me. I am disappointed. It's okay, really. It's all right. I would forget sometimes too to use my own link if they. Using your own affiliate link is something I'm not comfortable with from an ethical standpoint. Let me put it that way. To be fair, that's true, but also the Battles in the East games are really very nice. So, and it helps that Tony's a friend of mine too. But so I may be soft on them, but I do really like those games. All right, next is check out the cool cover here. Spitfire Ace by Nigel Hodge. Solitaire air combat game based on Greg Smith's Ace system. Um, this is another one that's an easy for anybody interested in World War II Air or Solitaire, World War II Air. This is kind of a can't miss type of thing, right? And I don't know if this is what the box is going to look like, but I love this box. This box looks amazing. Oh, Brant is wise here, folks. Don't do that. So, yeah, I really like this. Prepared by direction of the Minister of Aircraft Production for official use only. I think this is dynamite looking game, man. Just based on this cover alone, I love this. So, if you've played the Hunters or Night Fighter Race or any of the other games that Greg and his co-designers have and fellow designers have done on these things, they're all fun, they're all engaging, they all provide you with a really nice narrative. Some of them can be played cooperatively, but they're all very solid. Well, they're all pretty much solitaire games. So, all right, moving on from that. So, probably 5 years ago now, Compass released Blue Water Navy, which is kind of World War III in the Atlantic. This is Blue Water Navy, World War III in the Pacific. It is the sister game, but it can be played standalone. The regular other Blue Water Navy is not necessary for play. Now, we don't have, I forget who designed this now, and it's not on here. So again, somebody will say in the chat, yeah, I think that's great. I love the look of that. So yeah, I don't know anything about this. I don't know if this is the final cover or not. It doesn't necessarily look like it is. I have not played Blue Water Navy, but I have talked to people who did and do like it. So so take that for what it's worth. Third or fourth hand is great. For the Motherland by Masahiro Yamazaki, the legendary Japanese wargame designer, who's I'm really delighted to see. I have really no information about this particular game, other than I like this cover too. But I am delighted to see that this designer is getting a little more attention here in the U.S. So if we look at the map, well, let's see what we can see here. I don't know if this is a great view of the map, but it's a nice looking map. Nothing wrong with this at all. We will see that the counters look, they look like counters. There's nothing crazy happening here. I would be, again, I'm not going to stop buying East Front games, so I might look at this too. Why not? And I do like this cover a lot. Will this be a mounted map? Yes, this will be a one map mounted map, which is pretty cool. 5 counter sheets of 9/16 inch counters, though. That's a lot. So, look at that. You got Zhukov and Vasilievsky and Konev as get their own counters there. That's cute. Anyway, East Front Tank Leader, designed by David Pentland. So is this the old West End Tank Leader? Mo will clarify that, but I'm pretty sure that it is. So back in the day, West End Games, which did a lot of war games, they ended up being better known for their RPG stuff, but better known still possibly for their excellent shoes. For those who don't know, the people that ran West End Games basically ran a shoe company, and their like side project was West End Games, which ended up making more money than the shoe company after a while. So if what do we got here? There we go. All right. All right, so this is the redo. So they did like a series of games. There was Tank Leader East Front, Tank Leader West Front, and I think there might have been a third one too for the desert. And these are reprints, new editions, let's say, not reprints, of those. Original design, John Hill, but with Guy Hall. Updated design by Leonard Quam, Peter Corliss, David Pentland, Marcus Stumpner, Jay Townsend, and Shane Logan. So this was a big team effort. One is very curious to see how that's going to turn out. But yeah, as somebody, Stacking Limit pointed out, it's the original is a John Hill design. There's a West Front thing that's in the pipeline too. So this is another one that, one of these old classic games that probably deserves to still be in print, and it's going to be nice when it is. So Desert Steel was the East Front tank leader, or Desert tank leader game. And yeah, that's why. They did a bunch of it. They continue doing war games, but it was a nickel and dime stuff compared to friggin' Star Wars at the time. All right, Torpedo Junction, Beneath the Southern Cross, Volume 1. This has been rebranded at least twice in its development cycle. And I'm glad that it is now called Torpedo Junction, because calling it Beneath the Southern Cross confuses it with Under the Southern Cross, which is another game by GMT that came out not that long ago. I am really super interested in seeing this. This is what was originally envisioned, I think, as Flat Top on steroids, but from seeing what Bill had on it last year at Compass Expo, I think it has evolved substantially since then. We see that we have these fabulous ship counters. We have let's go here. Nice turn record, turn tracks and stuff. Here are the planes. I am legit excited about this. So, Carl Fung, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I have interacted with Bill a little bit. He is a nice guy. Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. Is this this looks like the battle board? Oh, no, this is the airstrike mat. Very interesting. Yeah, Flat Top doesn't have that. Here we can see the Solomons. So this looks good. The map looks good. Stigler will hate it because it's got the weird staggered hex numbers and regular hex numbers. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Whenever I think of Flat Top, this is what I think of. I do have some confidence in Compass. Let's look at the components here once we've looked at all the pretty pictures. Game artist, again, Bruce Yerian, who certainly is getting plenty of work from Compass. So this is going complexity high, but I expect it to be high. But I don't think it's going to be as high as it was like when I first saw it like 5 or 6 years ago. Mine too. From a war game standpoint, I don't know that it's close. But they did some interesting things. Let's see what comes in here. A map covering Shortland to Port Vila. 2 offboard mats, a rulebook playbook, 5 5/8-inch counter sheets, 2 half-inch counter sheets, 3 ship counter sheets, and a ton of other stuff, and 2 dry erase markers. That's interesting. So yeah, I'm getting this. This is not a question for me. I've been waiting for this since I heard Bill was working on it, whenever that was. So I am 100% on board for what is now called Beneath the Southern Cross Volume 1, Torpedo Junction. Druid, a West End classic by Mr. Richard Berg, as I recall. I think it's Boudica's Rebellion, if I'm remembering correctly, and he redid it as Boudica, I think, some years later for Turning Point, something like that. Here's another one from Ernie Copley. Here is Island Infernos. Low to moderate complexity. What do we got here? I think we'll just use this. All right, so here's a bunch of status markers. Here's some units. Interesting present, layout on the counter sheet, but nobody should actually care about that. Yeah, I think it was it against it might have been against the odds. It's all the same company anyway, man. So something like that. All right, Biak Island. I like this map. Here's Bougainville. Cool. Here's part of Guadalcanal, including Henderson Field, of course. Here's Saipan. A lot more manageable than the last Saipan game I played. Here's things for cards. I think that there's a lot of wargaming that could be done on these islands of World War II that we really haven't seen that much on. So I am generally in favor of seeing more games on this. And in this case, it looks like we're getting 4 island battles. So this is basically a quad 2. I think this looks like it's got a ton of potential. And I'd be very curious to see it later on when it is closer to release, whenever that happens. All right. You could, I guess, do this, but I don't know. I'm not that enthused about doing that for ASL. So, Andy Secretary, it reminds us all to smash the like button if we haven't done so already. All right, moving on to White Death. Veliki Luki. This is an old GDW game designed by Frank Chadwick originally. I am not familiar with the GDW version. The map looks bold for basically a winter map. But it looks fine. What else? What else do we got here? Good looking counters or fine looking counters. Ooh, the backs of these look very busy. One wonders how those are going to read. I am not. Are these the backs? These are the backs of something. So I don't know. One wonders how that's going to read. GDW folks was not afraid to slather on the complexity when the topic suited it. So this looks interesting. I don't know if this is something I feel like I'm going to need to personally buy. There is a Veliki Luki BCS game somewhere in the development pipeline, and I'm all over that. But that's because it's BCS and not because it's Veliki Luki. No, this is Frank Chadwick. Jack Rady's a good guess, to be honest, given what the topic is. But all right, Brothers at War, 1861. Is this a reprint? Because I think it's a reprint. I am reasonably sure this already came out, unless this is a volume 2. But I'm not seeing that. Actually, I think it is. Black Sea Black Death was Jack Rady, along with Coruscant Pocket. The Cossacks are coming. Several other ones that I could probably think of if I thought a little harder and had less whiskey to drink. Okay, so this is a volume 2. 1862 was first. This was pretty well received. What battles do we have here? Bull Run, doesn't say which one. Wilson's Creek, Carnifex Ferry, and Belmont. 4 interesting battles, actually. This sounds intriguing. And as we have established at this point, Mr. Christopher Moeller is another designer to keep a close eye on. He's probably done all the graphics for this thing, too. So, pretty sure Black Sea, but not everything from People's War Games was designed by Jack Rady, but most of it was. And he also did some stuff with other publishers as well. This is from 1862. We got Glorietta Pass and Pigeon's Ranch. These are some interesting smaller battles. It does happen that here's Belmont, actually. I do actually have a game on Belmont, and it is from Compass. It's the Belmont game that appeared a few years ago in Paper Wars with the Rick Barber map. Here's Wilson's Creek from 1861. Bull Run, 1860. Okay, so this is first Bull Run. Because, well, I guess I should have known that from the cover. Because it is 1861. Okay, this system seems pretty neat too, actually. I talked with some people who were playing it at WBC last year, and it looks intriguing. And like I said, the first volume was received very warmly, so this is worth looking at. Yeah, so there's so many battles in the Civil War beside the big ones that I don't think there's anything in here that was in by Swords and Bayonets. So I've got that Paniski Belmont. I haven't really looked at it because no time. All right, here's another interesting one, and this is actually kind of a sort of reprint. The War in Russia, Proud Monster Deluxe 2nd Edition Pay Later. So Proud Monster is a little complicated. So, this doesn't surprise me at all, does it? Drew, thanks for stopping by, says that Jack is also the admiral in command of the Zhukov carrier group in the Pleiades turkey shoot scenario for Starfleet battles. That's pretty awesome, actually. All right, so Proud Monster originally it's a like a legit monster game, but it releases in Command magazine back in the day, and I want to say it covers like 41 to 42, something like that. There is a sequel game called Death and Destruction that also appears a little bit later in Command magazine, and you can combine the two together and get this 1941 to 1944, to relatively early 1944. As I recall, this stops before. This stops before Bagration, as I recall. Proud Monster is later released in a 3-inch box in a fairly fancy edition from Compass with graphics by Art Lupinacci. And this is a revision of that. The original game, I believe, is a TIE Bomba design. Something like that. These counters look very similar to the last Compass edition, but don't. And in fact, this thing might. Well, it looks like that's new. So it's an intriguing game. It's supposed to be pretty easy to play, and it's a good question why I didn't mention this, because I couldn't mention everything. So what's the deal on this? Mounted maps, okay. You know, while I appreciate when mounted maps come and when they're nice, I have no problem with mounted maps, but for anything that's got more than one map, man, I would just rather have paper maps personally. That said, I hear people say all the time on BGG, I won't buy it if the maps aren't mounted. What are we, hillbillies? Playing with paper maps? I mean, I just don't care that much. So, and hey, if Bill loves mounted maps, that's cool. Like I said, I'm not gonna not buy a game because it has a mounted map. I just think generally it's more convenient. And anybody who's been over here can tell you how much friggin' plexiglass I have. I am good on plexi, so I'm not afraid to throw it under plexi. And what annoys me is when I have to throw plexi on top of a mounted map because it doesn't lay flat. Panzer Ace, 1939 to 1945, by Ace designer Greg Smith himself. This is going to be a solitaire tactical game of tanks. Greg was a tanker. I would be stunned if this was not highly enjoyable. So, yeah, I just don't care. I mean, if it's mounted, cool, but I just don't care. I've got plenty of plexi. I've got a big table that is designed to fit my plexi. I just don't, and this is another thing, is a lot of times a mounted map will create a problem getting all the stuff back in the box, particularly when there is both a mounted map and a deck of cards. That is awkward. So, all right. I don't care about the thickness of the paper so much, although I did pick up some stuff I didn't pick up. I unboxed, I did a buddy unboxing of a couple of things I want to say from one of the ASL third-party publishers, Prokhorovka is the product I'm thinking of, and that was on paper that was extraordinarily flimsy. I am more annoyed when the paint flakes off on the fold lines. I mean, Clash of Arms has really nice paper stock too, to be honest. All right, so moving on from that, combat. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is like volume 4, I think, in the combat series, Tunisia and Sicily. I think it would be a little more interesting if they went to the Pacific with this. I understand that might be a design challenge. I am not invested in this series. There are people who really, really like it, however. It has been compared to Ambush, but and very broadly, it is similar to Ambush. It's a solitaire, like very. I don't know if it's man to man or not. It might be squads, but it is broadly similar to Ambush, but mechanically, it doesn't resemble Ambush at all. So, so I think people can get the wrong impression from that statement. What time is it? It is 9:24. We are still good. In fact, we are so good that I think I will have a little more. Some of the old Mo's mentioning that the new Compass maps, and I've noticed this from Compass the last couple years too. Some of the old maps, like the early CSS games, for example, the Island War games, massive flaking along the folds, very irritating. Compass is not alone in that, and it is not, a humanitarian crisis, but it is very much a first world problem, as we say. But it is irritating when that occurs. I did just put a wee bit of water in that. Well, the original one is I'm sorry. Let me restate that because I just did the same thing I just complained about other people doing. Ambush is man to man. And SPI Sniper and Avalon Hill's Firepower, I never played either of those, but I believe that to be correct. I have well, I don't know that exclusively, but I have definitely noticed it more when the maps are really glossy. I have noticed that. All right, so combat, Tunisia and Sicily. These are kind of expensive, but they also tend to be like packed solid with stuff too. So it's not like you're not getting a bunch of stuff. Blitz World and Conflict Deluxe. This is a reprint with now on a mounted map. As we said earlier, it is, and you're going to see that this is a very similarly weird world map for Blitz. It's basically World in Flames, but instead of at the core level, it's kind of at the army level. And it's area movement, and the rules are somewhat leaner, but it's very World in Flames flavored. This is a reprint, so we're gonna skip on past it. A World Gone Mad, a Cold War game of mutually assured destruction. I don't know anything about this, but it kind of sounds to me like a cross between the old card games Nuclear War and Nuclear Annihilation, which were and probably still are a ton of fun to play when you are at a party with other gamers and everyone is intoxicated. This might be the same kind of thing, so I'm not sure. I may be not taking it quite seriously enough. Designed by Scott Liebrandt and Gregory Aldrete. Project manager Bill Thomas. Look at that. Looks like there's counters and stuff here as well. So this doesn't look like a straight card game. This reminds me of Supremacy, which I never played. I always wanted to play Supremacy, and it's just kind of the thing that I just kind of never did, and I'm not really that interested in it anymore. Richard Coker mentions that the Combat series is his favorite Compass product line. A lot of people really like it. It is a very, and I have looked through the materials. It is a very robust, solitaire, very tactical system. You can do a lot with it. A lot. So I get why people like the Combat series games. Like I said, this does remind me a little bit of Supremacy or the video game DEFCON. And there's probably, given the title and the cover, I do feel like there's probably a Dr. Strangelove, or Dr. Strangelove type of vibe going on here as well. So yeah, John, I know you were a Supremacy player, and it's just something that I never got to. All right. Mr. Lincoln's War. So this was released back in the day as 2 volumes. One was called Army of the Potomac, and the other was called Army of the Tennessee. Together they handled the eastern and western theaters of the American Civil War. They were released by 3W. The game design was by Mark McLaughlin, and is a very similar system to War and Peace, and therefore to 1776. This is a solid game design. The component quality from 3W back in the day was bullshit. It was terrible. These are I have mentioned this before. Those mounted maps from Army of the Potomac and Army of the Tennessee are the worst maps I have ever seen in any game from any publisher. They are shit. So thank God we're getting a new one. Good job, Bill. 2 mounted maps, as I would expect. This is a solid game. I think this is a lot of potential. Well, it has a lot of potential. Its potential has been fulfilled. Burning Banner's getting an expansion too. That's cool. Here we can see Army of the Tennessee for the West. And here we can see Army of the Potomac for the East. Like I said, solid game. Whoever's doing the map art on this, it looks good. The counters are it's basically a strength point system, much as you have in War and Peace. You do have a lot of leaders, which is cool. We've got some naval units here. My recollection of the naval system in this is dim, but I am like legit excited about this reprint. This is one of those games that I'd been hoping for years would get reprinted. Yeah, I've seen, not only you've opened it the 3rd time, I have like taken new games out of the box, and there's big white lines on the map because the paint is flaked off on the creases. I didn't have a huge issue with 3W maps. It's those maps in particular. When 3W decided they were doing mounted maps, they clearly had no idea what they were doing. Their mounted maps were bad. So, but I'm excited about this. This is probably one of my most anticipated releases coming from Compass. It is excellent. I've played a little bit of it years ago, but the game is solid. Airborne Assault Crete, May 1941, by Vance von Boris. This has got to be a reprint of something earlier as well, I would think. This may have appeared at some point in Wargamer Magazine. That sounds right. I'm also not a fan of gloss in general on counters, maps, anything like that. I like a nice matte finish. I love the old SPI counters for that exact reason. They had that nice matte finish. Modern companies that are doing something similar might include even some of GMT stuff has kind of a less glossy finish nowadays, which I really like. New England Simulations has matte finish counters that are gorgeous. Thin Red Line has coated, so it's kind of like more of a satiny type feel. It kind of feels like there's a plastic coating, because I think there is on the counters, but they still feel very nice. So yeah, I would completely agree. Okay, so Vince says you'd think this is a refresh of Air Assault on Crete, but it isn't. Okay, interesting. I've got a number of games on this topic, including the TCS game on Crete, including the GTS game on Crete, and there's at least one other one. Well, hell, part of Paratroop is Crete as well, isn't it? So there's that. All right, so moving on. Another reprint of an old, actually Task Force Games game, although I'm not sure they were the only publisher. East Wind Rain. This is kind of a classic, and it's supposed to. I've got the or an older edition of it, and it does look like there's some interesting ideas in it. This is the credits here. Let's look at what the box says. The credits here say Mark McLaughlin and Chris Vorderbrugge. And so one assumes that this will be somewhat revised from its original edition. Mounted map, 3 counter sheets. No, sorry, 7 counter sheets. A lot of counters in this thing, and it's got sort of that super hex deal going on in the ocean areas, where there are both sea zones and hexes, which is interesting, and it is a good approach for the Pacific. So I've heard good things about the original. Everything that I've seen from New England Simulations has, from a physical production standpoint, has been very conventional in terms of what, you get maps and counters and rulebooks and stuff, but everything is really nice and really well done. Just gorgeous. All right, SPI did have a huge Crete game. That was Air Assault. I can never keep these straight. There's Air Assault on Crete, and I forget. I've got the Avalon Hill Crete game that they did too. So this is true. Nobody's going to bring back the GDW Double Blind series, I don't think. I will be shocked and pleased if Compass does, but I don't expect that. All right, speeding right along here. Gladiators, Blood and Glory by Greg Smith. Greg has been playtesting this for a few years too. Everybody who's played it speaks very highly of it. It is exactly what it sounds like. It is a game of gladiatorial combat. Who doesn't love movies about gladiators? So, again, I would be shocked. This is not the greatest cover art I've ever seen, but it's fine. And I'd be shocked if the game is not just tons of fun to play. And this is a it's not a strictly solitaire game. Let me put it that way. It plays fast. I can tell you that just from watching the people go in and out at Compass Expo or Turkish prisons. Exactly. VUCA stuff is really nice too. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Meandering Mike. SPI was Descent on Crete. Avalon Hill was Air Assault on Crete, which also included Malta. So, yeah, as Mo says, I'm pretty sure Mo's played this. Greg has been running this for at least a few years at Compass Expo. It is always well attended. It is well liked. I would be stunned if this was not fun to play. Folks should generally check this out. And this is the kind of thing where I don't know that you're going to tax your neurons particularly difficult if it is 10 p.m. and you've had a quart of whiskey. So I think you will still be able to handle this, at least if Greg is there to run it for you. All right. This is my number one most anticipated release from Compass Games. This is World War III East Asia Front, and this is the Third World War system. I am unclear as to exactly what the status of this is. I have been waiting for this forever. I really like Compass's new edition of Third World War. I think it is magnificent. I've played it twice already. Not the full campaign twice. We played it at Origins, then we played a game at home too. 4 map sheets, 6 counter sheets. This is a must buy for me at $100. No problem. No problem at all. So let's see what we have for maps here. I've seen like a lot of the hand-drawn playtest maps that they've had at conventions for the last few years. Here we have Taiwan, for example. Obviously, that might be a place where stuff happens. Over here, we have northern China and parts of Japan. This is probably one of the maps that we saw in that bigger shot. Here's northern Japan. Here is Korea. Back to Taiwan. We're back to the counters. You can see if you've seen Compass's Third World War, it looks very similar because it's the same game system. It would be difficult to overstate how excited I am about this particular product. That said, I really do wish they had gone with the pollard markers, the rotary counters, rather than these hit markers like this. I think these are a pain in the ass. And you got so many, you got like sheets and sheets and sheets of these hit markers, and you needed them, right? I just think it would have been way easier to use the rotating pollard markers instead of these markers that have 4s on one side and 5s on the other side. That is like one of the only things I have a complaint about for that reprint. I wish they'd have fixed that, but it's not exactly a shock. All right, Guadalcanal Diary. There is, of course, a fairly famous book called Guadalcanal Diary, Battle for Henderson Field in this case. This is by James Steyer, artist Kim Kanger. Be completely honest, I know squat about this. What I can tell you is that not very much. Here's a western map. Here's an eastern map. Here's Henderson Field right on the eastern map. Here is, interesting. This is an area map where you can do all the large-scale movements and stuff. That's intriguing. And here is a bunch of stuff, including what looks like ships and aircraft and ground units. So this could be potentially interesting. I don't have a good game on Guadalcanal. I like this cover too. I like the photograph. I'm not sure I like the font for the title. I'm an asshole about this, so I wouldn't think that my opinion is necessarily shared. Let's take another look at this. I will tell you that I don't know. I mean, we're looking at the map on a computer screen. I'm looking on my computer screen, and you're looking on your computer screen or TV screen or phone screen. I can't see where the hex grid is here. I will tell you that. I can kind of see where the terrain, the forest ends and the other stuff begins, and I cannot see a single hexagon on here. That may be just because it's not final, so who knows? Nope. Wow. Yeah, that's very hard. That is very hard to make out. Let's hope that gets improved for the production version of that. The Russo-Japanese War. This is a redo of 2 games from Game Designers Workshop back in the day. The Tsushima game and the Port Arthur game. Not sure design-wise who did those. Mark Miller, excellent. Graphic artist Tiffany Monroe and project director Julian Thomas. Julian is reached the big time as a project designer. So these are 2 games that I, again, did not really deal with back in the day. This is the Port Arthur map, and as you can see, here's Port Arthur in Mukden. And here is Tsushima, which is, of course, wooden men and iron ships, which is cute, which I think is an actual quip from the day, to be honest. This is a interesting and extremely decisive naval battle between the Japanese and the Russians in 1905, I think, where the Russians they literally sailed across the planet uh, from like the Baltic all the way around to the Sea of Japan, and as soon as they got there, they got smoked, and the whole fleet got sunk. So, yeah, that was not on purpose. Not on this list is Compass's redo of Belter, which I am all over, but I don't see it. I'd love to personally. The one I would really like to see somebody do is Fifth Frontier War, but I don't know that I think that's going to happen, and that might be a little too closely tied for Traveler for Mongoose to be particularly forthcoming with the rights to it. But I don't know. That's completely speculative. Mongoose is doing their own Fifth Frontier War stuff, which do not include a war game nowadays, and that stuff is still continuing to come out. This Russo-Japanese War thing actually looks fairly intriguing. That's a topic I have 0 games on. Am I right about that? I'm pretty sure I am. I'm pretty sure I don't have any games on either Tsushima or the Russo-Japanese War, I think. But if I was going to pick one, I would be curious about the SPI one, even though it does not have a good reputation. Breakthrough Russia. This is another one from Ernie Copley. This is another East Front game. Let's look at the map. Interesting. This looks to me more like it is occupying the space held by a no retreat, the Russian front, than anything else. And you know what? As somebody who I see the appeal of no retreat, the Russian front, and there's plenty of people that think it's a great game, and I just bounced off of it. I don't think it's a bad game. It just wasn't a game for me. This might be, actually. Curious to see what Ernie can do with this. I remember that they had Guadalcanal Diary in the school library in my grade school. It was admittedly a Catholic grade school, so... Carl, I like Carl's instincts as a designer. I just the No Retreat series in particular. If I had played it with somebody who knew what they were doing, I might have had a completely different experience. I didn't. I had it at home, set up on a table, and I couldn't. It just didn't. It did not enter the gray matter. Let's put it that way. I like the look of this map as this kind of strategic level overview. I do kind of like this. A lot of people don't like the Caltrop hex grid, and I'm not crazy about it here because I think it makes it a little hard to see the hexes, but there's few enough hexes that I'm not sure it would be a problem. Have I played Absolute War? No. I do have it. It is very interesting because of those events. I think it's got some really ugly looking maps. I got to tell you, the maps are ugly. But the design looks pretty interesting. There's some really interesting features in there. In particular, these like huge books of events. One of these days, I'd like to do something with it, and my copy is partially punched. All right, so Breakthrough Russia. This looks like another one from Ernie. I like Ernie as a designer too. This looks pretty straightforward. It would be nice to have a nice straightforward game. This looks like more conventional than, say, No Retreat, which is unconventional in a number of respects. Which is neither good nor bad. It just might be not what I was thinking of. No, I was thinking, did I not say Absolute Victory? Okay, hold on a second. There is Absolute Victory, which is from Compass, Ben Madison, and Wes Ernie. And then there is Absolute War by Carl Parody from GMT, which I have not played. I haven't played either one, but I do have Absolute Victory. The Absolute War maps do not look ugly. So, a bunch of people are clarifying here for me. Thank you so much. Yes, indeed. Don't step on the D4s. Especially those metal D4s. You're going to the hospital if you step on one of those things. Road to the Rhine is another Game Designers Workshop, classic. This one by Frank Chadwick. This is a game that is still pretty well regarded as... I do feel like nowadays, when we talk about like people in the wargaming hobby now, we talk a lot about Avalon Hill. We talk a lot about SPI. We don't talk very much about GDW, except to mention Europa from time to time. But GDW did a lot of really interesting things in the wargaming space. As a company, they just became known for other stuff later on in their history. This map looks a little congested, but I think it is a pretty faithful adaptation. I have seen the original game. Looks like a pretty faithful adaptation of the original map, and kind of looks like a GDW map updated to modern standards, and I think that's kind of cool. So this is another one. This is West Front. What does this cover exactly? So this covers after the breakout, pretty much to and beyond the Rhine. So pretty much July till the end of the war. That's kind of what it sounds like. 2 maps, 2 counter sheets. So it's not enormous. The original was not enormous either. A lot of people liked GW's Assault. I can't hear the screams from here, so that's cool. A lot of people do like a buddy of mine that I've played a bunch of other GW stuff with loves Assault. I had Assault and Boots and Saddles back in the day, and I might have played it once or twice. But what I really liked from GDW from a wargame perspective, and this was decades before I touched Europa to play, although I had a couple Europa games back in the day. Okay, Carl specifies that this is September 44 to March 45, so not quite what I said, but not too far from what I said. I have no idea where I was going with that, actually. What I really liked about GDW's the GDW games that I really liked back in the day playing them were the Third World War games. I didn't have them all. I never had Persian Gulf, and I never had Arctic Front, but I did have the Third World War Battle for Germany, which is kind of the core. They're all standalones, but it's kind of the core set. And I had Southern Front too, but I didn't play Southern Front until I played it about, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And it's Southern Front's one of my favorite pieces of that. Actually, it's got a really interesting dynamic. So at some point, we should talk more about Game Designers Workshop. The trouble with me doing that is that invariably we will end up talking about Travelers. So we're gonna wrap the topic up tonight, folks, but I am not wrapping the show up quite yet. So let's pull this down and just gab for about 13 minutes. Perfidious Albion might have to break out GDW's first battle system. So this was the line of games. There was 2 or 3 of them, I think, that was kind of designed to be like easy access, first war game type of games. Oh God, yeah. By April of 45, yeah, Germany's, well, unless the Allied player is doing really quite badly. So I would like to see a lot of the miscellaneous stuff from GDW get more attention, let me put it that way. Stuff like Eagles, right? Which, I mean, some of this stuff made it elsewhere. Eagles in particular made it to Avalon Hill as Caesar's Legions. They did the Chaco. As far as I know, that's the only game on that ever. There might actually, I think there is at least one other one, but there's a lot of really interesting and unique topics that GDW did back in the day. They did an ILAU game. Now there's a million ILAU games that have come out in the last couple of years. Oh God. So FYI, for the record, I have no clue when any of this will be coming out. That said, I closed the window. There you can actually, on the front page of Compass's website, they do have like the next few things that will be out are listed there. So you can check that out or listen to the Compass Games live show. They talk about a lot of, where stuff is in the production pipeline back in the day. So those were redone by Compass too as World War II campaigns, and this set actually looks impressive. It's 1940, 1941, and 1942. Now, both of those were what GDW marketed as Series 120, which was the idea was it was going to have less than 120 pieces and you were going to be able to play it in less than 120 minutes. 120 pieces they achieved. 120 minutes, I'm not quite sure. But a couple of the designs have held up pretty well. 1940 is France. I don't know how good that one is. That's a difficult topic. 1941 is the East Front. And 1942 is the Pacific. So they're all completely different independent games, and Compass, but they're all also pretty small. So Compass kind of bundled them all together as World War II campaigns. And I do think that Mo will correct me if I'm wrong about this. I think they got Art Lupinacci to do the graphics for that, and I honestly am not a huge fan of Art's wargame graphics. However, For that particular package, I think it works really well because it is reminiscent and evocative of the GDW originals, and I think it totally works for that. You know what? There are still people playing Command Decision amongst like the serious World War II miniatures people or modern miniatures people who don't want to like deal with Flames of War and whatever the other one is. Because I don't even care. There are still people who are swear by Command Decision. It is supposed to be an excellent rule set. I never got into it because miniatures, right? But there was that. All right. So let's continue drinking this whiskey in the meantime. So, yeah. So I think Compass is working on this too. This game looks extremely interesting. The old Pearl Harbor, unlike despite what you might think of by the title, it covers the whole Pacific War. This looks like a very interesting game. A buddy of mine, local buddy of mine, actually ran down a GDW copy. I think their Compass is supposed to redo this one too, but I'm not sure where that's at. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that's not on pre-order, but which we know Compass is working on somewhere. And yeah, hey, why not? Ty Bomba is creating multiple variants for the 1940, 1941, and 1942 games. So, for example, in Ty's 1940 variant, as the Germans are storming through the Ardennes, aliens land and take over France. So, for example, that would be one hypothetical scenario. I'm being slightly snarky, and I don't mean we love you, Ty. I know, but I'm just making fun of that. And yeah, GDW did Dragonok Austin and Fire and the later versions of all of those things. So, my thoughts on Game of the Year, God. I'm going to say, because he's here, and, the year's not over yet, but I'm going to say so far, and I might be wrong, there might be something I'm not thinking of, because remember, shit that came in last year is still stuff that I'm, still looking at. By Swords and Bandits is kind of probably a strong contender for my personal Game of the Year so far. And Harpoon, originally, yeah, Harpoon's been through a bunch of pairs of hands at this point. Craig Alexander mentions Barlev, which was originally from Conflict Games, I think, but the Conflict Games got kind of absorbed or bought, or however that worked out, by GDW. And then the Compass version appears to me to be a completely different game. Harpoon digital version. This is called Command Modern Operations, as I recall. All right, looking. The 1940 campaign in France is a really difficult campaign to do well as a game, to make it an engaging game without fudging the numbers. And then if you fudge the numbers, it's really obvious that you fudge the numbers, and it feels like bullshit. So a lot of designs, I have no opinion on the GDW one. I will speak very highly of Blitzkrieg Legend, which I think does a really good job in this respect. And I recently picked up the latest version of France 40 from Mark Simonich, and I'm very curious to see how that works out as well. So, Carol says that Barlev by Compass was the redo of Barlev of Chad. I didn't realize those were different then. Or I could just be misremembering, or I could just be full of shit. That's possible. Did Congress of Vienna come out this year? It might have. I'm not sure. I've played it already. I like it. I don't know if it's my game of the year, but I do like Congress of Vienna. It's pretty slick. Okay. Yeah, in that case, I never played that. I do have Command Modern Operations Digital, and I haven't done crap with it. So. So there should be another video this week, an unboxing video of some kind, and that's likely to be on Thursday or Friday, but we will see. Vince says that Compass's Barlow was way over chromed. So one of the things that it did was it included two sets of counters, one with icons and one with NATO symbols. While I understand that some people prefer NATO symbols and some people prefer icons or silhouettes, I'm a NATO symbols guy for the most part, but I don't care that much. I do think it must have increased the cost of the game to include two complete counter sets. And I don't know that I think that that was a good idea for anybody involved. I don't own anything from Conflict. So recall that um, Conflict Games was basically John Hill, okay? And then it sounds like John Hill decided, this publishing thing sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to like design games. That's fun. This sucks. So GDW kind of like took it over, and the original version of Imperium. Not if somebody were to come to me and say, I can get you the rights to any GDW science fiction board game you want to redo, which one would I pick in a heartbeat? It would, as much as I like Belter and Fifth Frontier War, it would be Imperium. There is no reason that shouldn't be in print now. And I think it is technically in print. It's just in print in China or Japan. And there's pictures of that on B2G, and it's gorgeous. But I can't read either Chinese or Japanese, so that wouldn't really help. Now, when the use of a symbol carries additional meaning, then I am in favor of it. So, for example, in some of the Mark 7-ish games, at least, if most of the symbols will have counters on them, but some of the symbols will have like tank. Some of the counters will have like tank silhouettes, and those units actually behave differently. Gauss works like this too. If you could tell if the unit is like a mixed unit, it'll have like a NATO symbol and an armor silhouette on it. So Belter is already being. I know, but when is this coming out though? That's what I want to know. They flashed a cover of it. I'm sold. I'll shut up. This is a shut up and take my money type of situation. So I'm happy to buy it whenever it comes out. So, and I realize you might not know, Mo, because it just might just not be where it is, where anybody knows exactly when it's coming out. So, generally, yeah. I mean, not so sort of, yeah. I mean, there's certainly like a huge level of improvement in Third World War, which is the designer signature edition. But that's largely in the realm of components and play aids and stuff like that. And there's an extra map too, but I wouldn't mind. I mean, cool. I'm cool with Dark Nebula, which is basically Imperium, but it's instead of having like here's the map and here's the space you're playing in, you have these little isomorphic panels that you can kind of mix and match and change the map up for every game. So Imperium is a terrific game. So it'll come out when Bill wants it to. I mean, yeah, of course it will. But I have a great fondness for Belter. Of the GDW sci-fi games, I have them all now. I have obtained Asteroid, which I was missing. I've got the actual Traveler ones, Mayday, Snapshot, Ashanti High Lightning, and Fifth Frontier War. And Imperium is sort of an official Traveler game because it is in the Traveler universe, but it predates Traveler, so there's that. There's Blood Tree Rebellion, Double Star, Triplanetary, and Belter are the non-Traveler specific, and Asteroid games that they did. And the only ones I have done anything with at all are Fifth Frontier War and Belter. And I like Belter. It's an economic game. You go mine asteroids and then take the ore back and you sell it, and I like that kind of thing. So I do not have this. This is it's waiting for a timely burglary is what it's waiting for. It's awaiting breaking and entering. And I can ensure that I have an ironclad alibi for whenever that occurs in Connecticut. So, like I said, I'm excited about Belter. I didn't see it on the pre-order list, but if whatever they want to do as far as that kind of thing. Again, if they or somebody else do. So I've got the last attempt at Imperium. I had to stand up lest a large quantity of product fall on everybody's head. Is this thing Imperium Third Millennium from Avalanche Press? Why is it the third millennium? I don't know. That's not really it's not that far in the future. I mean, I guess we're in the third millennium, right? So maybe that's it. And graphically, it's actually quite nice. And it does incorporate some like additional things in the game that don't really work right. Some of those things originally popped up in various places, like the planetary assault rules. But I've played this, and while it does kind of shit the game up to some extent, it's really not that bad. This has a terrible reputation, and I didn't think it was that bad. And again, I am fairly forgiving when it comes to this stuff. So, all right, folks, that is a wrap. Did I have a question? Yeah, one question from Winterson that I flagged for later. He's been listening to the Foundation series on Apple TV, and he sees many similarities to the Traveler universe. Is there a link? Officially, no, there's no link. But it's clearly like one of the inspirations of like the big empire. It's just that when they started, Mark was always very, and continues to be, you can see this in Traveler 5. It was always like a nuts and bolts kind of guy. He's like the kind of guy who'd want to like kind of do the math to see if what he's saying makes any sense. And that's why the Traveler universe is quite a bit, like the Imperium is quite a bit different than say the one you see in Foundation. So okay, couple quick things here. Do I know if the war games by Mark ended up with ownership of any of the GDW games? I'm not sure. So the way GDW folded was everybody, all the designers, the original designers, got the rights to their games back. So Mark got Chaco, for example, and Traveler, and a bunch of other stuff. And then in the past decade or so, Mark had kind of been gathering rights to other Game Designers Workshop products like Twilight 2000 and Dark Conspiracy and some other things. So Mark should have landed with all of those rights, but then Traveler, like last year, got signed over to Mongoose Publishing in what I thought was a really class move by Mark, but that's because Mark's a class guy, to say, hey, a lot of people really love this, and at some point I'm not going to be here, and I want to make sure that it continues. So we're he's had this working relationship with Mongoose Publishing for years. They're doing a generally great job, and we're going to continue to do that. So that's the situation there. If we're talking about the war games, then those war games all went to Mark too. But as far as I know, those are still held by Mark, I think. All right, so folks, that is it for the show for this evening. So I would like to thank everybody for stopping by. If you have not yet done so, please do like the video. And I'm not sure Mark did the Assault series. I don't think so, but like I said, I'm not sure. I don't recall. I thought that was Frank, actually. I could be wrong about Assault. It's been a long time since I've looked at that. All right, so we got to go, folks. It is time. So again, I want to thank everybody for stopping by. Don't forget all the ways to support the channel linked in the video description, especially the Patreon and the Noble Knight affiliate link. And big thanks and shout outs to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, without whose support and assistance and encouragement we would not be able to keep doing this. And the same thing with our friends at Noble Knight Games, from whom we heard earlier. Thank you, Noble Knight. And thank all of you for coming out this evening. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you all again soon.